You guys are never going to believe what topic we are discussing on today's show. But really quickly, make sure you come hang out with us for the draft. We're going to be live on the channel for Thursday and Friday, giveaways, pick-by-pick analysis, and it's all completely free. So hit that sub button down below, and I'll see all of your beautiful faces tomorrow. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say, but you're not going to believe this. We've got some Kirk Cousins news to get to. I know we're all tired of the updates and we're just waiting for real news to break, but Dianna Russini named 3 teams that could trade for Kirk Cousins as early as this Saturday, which I hope it is, and this can all be behind us. Here's what Russini wrote. The Browns, Steelers, and possibly Vikings could be involved in a Cousins trade. Minnesota is looked at as the least likely scenario, given its preference for J.J. McCarthy and that Cousins would need to sign off on any trade he is involved in. It's believed that Cousins would be against any trade that involves sending him to a situation involving a young QB, similar to the situation he faced in Atlanta last year. If a trade were to happen, I'd expect it to go down on Saturday. I'm just exhausted at this point. I don't have a take. I don't have like a vantage point or some analysis, some, hard-hitting ideas. Just like you right now, I'm tired of all this. I want it to be over with. If I had to come up with, one takeaway from that, what's the definition of a young quarterback? Right? If the Browns take a quarterback in, say, the 3rd round, is that too early for Kirk Cousins' liking? Or is it just first-round guys? Because the Browns pick at 33 to open up the 2nd round. Is that too early for Kirk? Because he's got that no-trade clause. So at some point, if Cousins wants to go play for, say, the Browns or any of the, like, if the Steelers get one in round 2, is that too early? So at some point, there has to be a line in the sand where Kirk goes, if the quarterback is taken before this pick, I won't go there. And I'm very curious what that line in the sand is, because if he doesn't want to go to the Browns and the Falcons are in agreement on a trade, but Kirk won't sign off on it, then Kirk's got to accept just being a backup this year versus actually have a chance to compete for a starting job elsewhere. Now, if a trade were to happen, there could be a handful of ways it goes down. It could be for a future draft pick that's more conditional on what Kirk Cousins does for that team in 2025. Snaps, wins, stats, all that stuff. But if I had to put up an idea, I could see the Browns giving up one of their many 6th-round picks for Kirk. Cleveland in this situation would probably take on more of his salary in exchange for not giving up a better draft pick. If the Steelers want to take on Cousins, I could see it being for a 5th. Pittsburgh just doesn't strike me as a franchise willing to take on a good chunk of that salary. So in lieu of paying for more of Kirk Cousins' guaranteed cash, they give up a better draft pick. And then the Vikings, they only have 4 draft picks. So I don't see them parting ways with any of their picks this year. I could see them giving Atlanta a conditional 2026 5th-round draft pick that, based on playing time and whatnot, could move up to a 4th and possibly a 3rd. So that's a rough idea as to what I think Atlanta could get in a trade for Kirk, who at this point is in a weird spot, right? He's showing up to OTAs, and Raheem Morris did not expect that when speaking at the NFL owners meeting earlier this month. He's got a lot of money guaranteed to him. Someone's going to be paying it. And it doesn't have to all be one team. The Falcons and the Browns, the Steelers, and the Vikings could split that salary. But the more Atlanta is willing to eat, the better they'll get in a trade pick, right? In a trade compensation, in a trade return. But the number that's been floated out there is the Falcons want another team to take on $20 million. He's got, I think, $37.5 million owed to him this year, $27.5 million in base salary, $10 million from that roster bonus. That's a little over 50%. Yeah, good luck finding a team willing to take on $20 million in guaranteed cash after the way Cousins played last year, the Achilles injury 2 years ago, and a shoulder and elbow injury he's coming off of from what he claims he suffered towards the end of 2024. So it's fine to throw out a big number like $20 million and then work your way down to $15 million, but if you really want to get $20 million off your books, you got to prepare for getting just a 7th or a 6th-round draft pick in return. All right, hopefully that's the end of the Kirk Cousins saga. For now, hopefully we get the news we've been waiting for come like Saturday, which is the Falcons have traded Kirk, right? That would be ideal. But if not, we're going to continue to update you when we get real updates. So make sure you subscribe. We're 325 away from reaching 35,000 subscribers. I want to get to that number before the NFL draft begins. So do yourself and me a big favor. Get yourself some of the best free Falcons YouTube content out there. Now, next up on the show, I want to talk about some of the NFL draft buzz. 2 players were mentioned as targets for Atlanta at 15. One we've talked about a bunch, one not as much. So I want to look at both those players. But first things first, shout out to our sponsor today, which is Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. So if you want to go to a Braves game or any other sporting event in your area, make sure you check out Game Time first. They've got great last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So there have been a handful of names mocked to the Falcons at 15. One that's cooled off, I think we can all agree, over the last month and a half, is Tennessee's pass rusher James Pearce. However, Dianna Russini put out a really good article with a bunch of the nuggets and rumors she's hearing leading up to the draft, and it included this. The Falcons are focused on building up their defense with pass rushers. No shit. Tennessee's James Pearce Jr. and Marshall's Mike Green are in play for Atlanta. We've talked a ton about Green, but let's revisit Pearce because back in January, it felt like it was either James Pearce or Michael Williams. Then Mike Green's stock went way up and Pearce and, Williams kind of fell to the rear view. So some background on the Volunteer. First thing you got to look at here is just the frame and the size. He's a very unique pass rusher. He's not all that big, 6'5", 245. So very slender, very lean. He's not going to win with just pure brute strength and a bull rush. He's going to win with speed. And the Falcons like speed on their defense. They signed Divine Diablo at linebacker because he is a very fast player. In the first offseason with Raheem Morris, they targeted a lot of speedy guys. So in a lot of ways, Pearce would fit that mold for what you are looking for. Now, he's got great speed, like we mentioned. He can get in the backfield. I think he's better against the run than some people want to give him credit for. There are some red flags. There are some cons, right? One, we talked about just the size. That's not really a traditional edge rusher size. Doesn't mean you can't make it work. But in the pros, in college, if you made your money because of your speed at defensive end, you might be in for a rude awakening in the NFL when you're going up against tackles who are freaky quick and have great footwork, and you don't have that edge over them anymore, at least not the disparity you had in college. And if you don't have just pure brute strength to drive a tackle back into the quarterback, you're going to be in a tricky situation as a bit of a one-trick pony. The other concern is there have been some character concerns tossed out there regarding Pearce. I've never met him in person, so I'll let the Falcons deliberate on that. But you better believe that there are teams who just take players right off their board if they feel like that's not what we're looking for in our Falcons roster. That's not the kind of guy we want in our locker room. And we have no idea who those players are for Atlanta, so we can be spending all this time talking about Pearce's pros and cons, and it's worthless because the character concerns became too big of a red, then black flag for the Falcons, and they just put the black sticker on his name, and he is no longer in contention. But if we're just looking at Pearce the player, there is a lot to like from that speed standpoint and what he was able to do last year and the first 2 years before for the Volunteers. I mean, you look at James Pearce's stats from 2023 when a lot of people thought he could be the first overall pick in this year's draft. 10 sacks, 52 pressures. Then in 2024, a bit of a regression. 7.5 sacks, 55 pressures. As someone who went to Tennessee and watched every Tennessee game last year, Tennessee did not do James Pearce's draft stock a lot of favors. He didn't play a ton early in the season when they were beating up on teams before, Nico and the offense kind of went down the drain and games got closer. But Pearce was playing I think 35 to 40 snaps total over the first few weeks of the season. So maybe 50. But the point is he just didn't get a ton of opportunities to pile up those sacks against lesser opponents. And then come April, we look at a player and we just look at, 10 sacks, he's great. Yeah, well, 7 of those 10 came out of conference. Only 3 were in conference. So unless you do the deep digging on that, which for Pearce, it's kind of the opposite. You got a lot of production done in conference, but he wasn't the best when they played Georgia and when they played Ohio State, 2 of their bigger games of the year. Then there's Mike Green, who has been a heavily mocked player to Atlanta. I believe if Green is available at 15, and Will Johnson and Jalen Walker and these other guys who are reaches are off the board, he will be the pick for the Falcons. He's got good speed like Pearce, not as fast as James Pearce, but he's still got some good, burst to his game, really good bendiness. That's a buzzword if you want to sound smart when talking about edge rushers. The ability just to kind of rip below offensive tackles. Nick Bosa is the best at that in the league. So that's something that really makes him pop out and stand out when watching his tape. Now, like Pearce, there are some character concerns. He's been accused of sexual assault twice. Neither one was ever, brought to court or anything like that, but just allegations. But I guess they were serious enough allegations for Virginia to dismiss him after his freshman year. Then he transfers to Marshall. Doesn't do a whole lot in 2023, but in his lone season as a starter, 17 sacks, 23 tackles for loss. I mean, he put up some really good production. 59 pressures, 3 forced fumbles. So Green, I feel like, has a great composite for what you're looking for. The production is there. The traits are there. No one's perfect, and the knock for him is somewhat similar to Pearce. Is he going to have that strength to really just pile drive offensive tackle back into the quarterback? He got up to 251 for the combine. I think he plays better around 245. But that 2.5 sounds way better and looks a lot more manageable for versatility across your defensive front. So if you were in charge, who would you pick? The slender but speedster out of Tennessee, or the productive but borderline one-hit wonder out of Marshall? Pros and cons to both guys. Personally, and this is a lot coming from a guy who spent 4 years at Rocky Top, I go with Mike Green. I just like the production a lot. And for Pearce, I've heard one too many stories of his character in the locker room and his presence. And I feel that there are some places and some teams where they can coach that out of you. Atlanta doesn't seem like one of those places. And it's not so much against the Falcons coaching staff. I think it's partially to do with the city as well. Right? There's a lot to do in Atlanta as an NFL rookie. If you go to Buffalo, if you go to Baltimore, maybe you don't find yourself, I wouldn't say in trouble, but distracted. That's a great way of putting it. And I know this sounds, ridiculous, but we see it a lot in the NFL. There are so many instances of a player who's got some character concerns, but a team takes a chance on him, and it goes down the drain. All right, before we sign off, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's pick a viewer out of the comment section to wrap up today's episode. Appreciate everyone who sticks around all the way to the end of the video. That's this 6 right here. So big special shout out going to, we got Stassi Bambino. Stassi, 2 claps for you. 1, 2. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. We'll be back with more content leading up to round 1 Thursday night.